for our meeting today, we're going to do a workshop with Honeywell on the analysis and hopefully choose some projects today. So I think turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, well, just obviously we've met a bunch of times. Again, Josh Hounsel, the account executive from Honeywell Energy Services Group. And I brought along my project manager, I think you guys have met Mark, and then also our building automation specialist, Dave Gaiman. So really the goal is, and Matt's done a nice job of vetting the scope of work from a technical side. We've had a couple of emails go back and forth to answer his questions. I think the board has a good understanding of the project in general, but you're going to have some additional questions maybe that I can answer. And that's why if you want to talk about the bid process or how Chris approaches a project, that's why he's here. If you want to talk about the EDI or the controls or any of the technical questions, that's why Dave is here, along with Mark. And then any potential financing questions or legislative questions, Chuck or I can answer. So, really, you have all the information that you really need. And if you want to start asking questions, I know Matt will probably have some because I sent him a pretty long-winded email over the weekend. Feel free to blast away, or if any of the other board members have questions, each individual with that responsibility can answer that for you. If that seems fair, that was really my agenda.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I don't think we've been privy to what Matt has asked. So
Okay.
if you want to bring us up to speed on the questions you've asked, kind of the answers you've received.
Well, and thanks. And obviously, this is how transparency works, and we're a government board, and I can't even have a discussion with the co-chair down there, Jordan. So none of that was shared.
Sure. Okay.
That's why also I don't do a reply on emails, because if he's included, which he should have been because he's on the committee, I can't go back and forth like that.
Sure.
Some of the concerns I had, I expressed at the meeting was, the big one for me is that we agreed on the proposal, and it's very clearly documented because we videotape our meetings, but I had asked about doing depressurization testing on the buildings. I know how intensive that is. I know how important that is if you're going to be actually determining if there's a problem with the building envelope, or to what degree the building envelope leaks. It was said repeatedly at our meetings here that building envelope air leakage is, along with lighting, the low-hanging fruit. So I was expecting a big savings there. And it did turn out that there was no depressurization test done on the building. It was explained by Josh that the building envelope team went to all the buildings, looked at stuff, determined that there weren't serious building envelope issues, identified some issues with weather stripping on doors and windows, and that was really where the $62,000 comes in, I believe. Another thing was the transition between the roof and the exterior walls, and that might be something that would be nice to have a little bit of information on. We didn't see any pictures or really detailed description on that. But that, that's a concern for me because, and Josh, and I'll reiterate, as you said, I don't think you intentionally misled me by any means, but I did do my due diligence of asking the question and base my decision on that, and I think probably it might be accurate to say that you just lacked the information at the time and gave the best response you could at the time.
Yeah, and really, and that's why I'd gone to the person, or the firm that we worked with to develop the scope of work. And when you asked the question, my thought was, is it done when the project is delivered versus, because that's how it is measured and verified, because when you're building the package up front, you don't need to depressurize the building. They're looking at just the number of linear feet, but specifically the M&B process to guarantee and make sure that their scope of work is accurate and that the number of cubic feet per minute when the building is pressurized is reduced by, that's that variable in the equation. That's how they're building their scope of work, and that's why I gave you their technical documents. So it was definitely not my intention to mislead you. It was just, again, the way the question was posed, and that was my response. Because when Chris, we did a building envelope project at Gillette, and I walked up in a progress meeting, that's my thought process. I was like, oh, well, you can see the blower motor and all that stuff, hooked up to the front door, and not necessarily is that what happens up front for them to build a scope and put an estimate together. So again, it's not my intention to mislead you, just the way that the question was phrased and the way I answered it.
Okay. And for me, if we're going to invest $62,000, and I realize that once low-hanging fruit, probably obvious thing to do with lighting is now not really a low-hanging fruit and all that, but still, it's right in here at $62,000. And unfortunately, we would never know if we invest that $62,000. If you don't do the pre-depressurization testing, we'll really never know what was accomplished unless you do pre and then post. And this is always going to be a sticking point with me. I don't know if you guys would still be willing to do that.
No, they'll be pre and post, but just to build a scope of work, they don't need to do that, because when you're measuring and verifying, there has to be a baseline. So the baseline is going to be us coming in and doing and seeing what the actual cubic feet is before and then after. So it just wasn't done to build a scope of work up front, is what I'm saying. So in the actual delivered scope of work, that will occur. And so, but it just didn't happen up front in order to see what you see in front of you from an estimate and cost standpoint.
And for me, our investment, I've largely based that investment on the fact that I thought that was going to be done, not only done if we decide to do that. Because quite honestly, it's very difficult other than just kind of making generalizations, it's very difficult for you to estimate how much we'll save on our building envelope if you don't already have the depressurization results and compare it to the cubic footage of the buildings.
Chris, do you want to talk to that a little bit, maybe?
Well, for some of the scenarios, the formulas that we run, we can use, it can be very mathematically done. We have a door, we have a 16th inch gap around the door, so you take a 16th by the linear feet around the door. That coincides with the size of the opening that you have. You multiply that by however many doors and so on and so forth. So after that would be a pre. The post is there's no gap anymore. You measure it. You may have a gap where the latch comes and there may be a piece of weather stripping that you can't have because the latch hits it or would hit it. So then that would be a 2-inch or a 3-inch piece of weather stripping that's not there. So you went from 7, 14. You went from 17 linear feet of a 16th inch or an 1/8 inch gap, depending on the bottom or whatever, to a couple inches less than just where the latch is. So that's fairly easy mathematically to do. And the roof wall is kind of the same way. We have the roof wall, and the gap there is usually much higher than the 16th. And so you can, obviously, the roof wall isn't smooth, linear. Yes, it would maybe say 30 feet, but the roof goes like this. The decking goes up and down. So when you do the mathematicals on that, one room it adds up to a lot of cubic feet. You would do your cubic feet on that, and after it's sealed, then it would be 0. So, or some instances you can't seal the entire thing, then you just minus that off. But that's fairly easy to know on building envelope. So you look at the door, you measure the gap. This is the gap proven, you've measured it, you physically can see it. And then after it's complete, then you see the door, you see there's no gap, or you have a small gap where the latch goes, and then you go and you add that up to would be open area cubic feet.
And as part of the upfront, investment grade audit that we've done of the IGA that we have here, delivering over 100 school districts since 1996 in the Midwest. Not to mention all of our federal work and all the healthcare work we've done as a performance contractor. We know where the thresholds and the tolerances are and what the savings, should be. Being in performance contracting and really being one of the founders of the industry, which began in the early 80s. In Wisconsin, we've only missed one savings number, and that was assisted living facility in Greene County. And that was a mistake by our engineers. So the numbers that you're seeing, Matt, they're real numbers and they're good numbers.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. And I know you didn't go around and measure the gap on every single door, top, bottom, left, and right. And so again, these are generalizations. That's all. I'm just saying what I thought you were going to believe, what made sense for this investment on behalf of our school district and the taxpayers wasn't didn't happen, hasn't happened yet, maybe it will. But I mean, I'm just sharing with the board my point of contention about it. The other point of contention, and again, I guess in fairness, we heard that when you spend this amount of money, then of course that impacts your state aid allocation. And you certainly did say that we had to have that verified by the experts and all that. But at every meeting, it seems that you're wondering if we're ready to make some decisions and all that. And when I ran the numbers, and I think they've since been verified, instead of it being a large increase in state aid, if we were to spend $1.2 million, we'd actually lose $130,000 in state aid because we were negatively aided. So that was another thing we just discussed at the meeting. And again, they're talking in generalities, which is understandable. Most districts certainly would have an increase in state aid.
The point I was trying to make, Matt, was that you need to run the scenarios with Baird. As I mentioned at the meeting, you guys are in a position financially that most districts aren't. You could write a check and pay for the project. That may or may not be a good decision because of your financial situation. And as you check out on the DPI website, and I think Ed has found the same thing working with Baird, that's not going to be a good decision for you guys, but it is an option. The other options are you access the revenue cap exemption and put it on the tax base. You borrow the money over a period of 5 to 10 years. Which of those solutions really is best for each district is different depending on your financial situation. And I'm sorry if I led you down the road thinking you were going to get a bunch more state aid. That wasn't the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to make is you've got a very advantage of having 3 or 4 different scenarios that other districts don't have. And until you run the numbers with somebody like Baird that's qualified to do it, you're not going to be able to make an informed decision as to which one's the best for you. Very simplistic solution with your fund balance would be to just write a check for the whole project and be done with it and not have to pay any interest. But it is going to have a real big impact on your state aid. Not only the decrease in the state aid because you're negative aided on the tertiary side, but also the fact that your state aid is going to bounce up and down precipitously from year to year because of that big spending all in one year. And until you plug that into Baird's worksheets and stuff, it's really not feasible for anybody to work that out. So I'm sorry if I misled you. That wasn't the intent at all. I just trying to encourage you to make sure you did your due diligence on the financial side of it with somebody more qualified than us.
Okay.
And actually, legally, because of the nature of our company, there's a law because we're not an investment bank. It's called Sans Bank Oxley. We're not allowed to give financial advice. That's why we repeatedly say this is, as an example, even my cash flows until we know what vehicle you're going to use. I'm legally bound that we cannot give financial advice.
Right. It isn't hard to run a simple calculation. Actually, the state, there's 3 variables you put in. Not that you would want to do that for the reason you just mentioned, John.
That's exactly right.
And I think if 100 people heard the presentation, 99 would assume that we have an increase in state aid based on what you said. So
yeah, that wasn't my intent, but you.
Yeah. I guess a new question I have, and I've gone back and forth like a ping pong ball on this. So we have in buildings fluorescent bulbs, and they run on fluorescent ballast. And the Honeywell proposal in our buildings, 3 other buildings, between 150 to almost 160,000, is to remove the existing ballast, fluorescent ballast, put in a new external ballast, or it's equally could be called an external
LED driver, step-down transformer.
And then use a tube LED bulb that doesn't need a built-in driver because you have the external driver. And the cost on that is, and there's some other very important things, everything from wiping down the reflective lenses that remain, and on several, I don't know exactly how many you gave us those details, a lot of those reflectors or troughs, I don't know what the terms are, some of them are getting replaced.
Some are getting replaced, some are kits, there's no reason to buy another reflector kit if there's already one there, and our scope speaks to that. But what we're trying to do is deliver the most effective lighting system from a cost per square foot standpoint or watts per square foot, and then re-engineer those spaces with appropriate light levels, and then also add building automation into that to turn things off to further increase energy savings, is really the nature of the scope of work.
Or what, because this is an important detail, what controls will you have when we go with your proposal and an external driver? and that we wouldn't have if we went with ones that have built-in drivers? And, you know, what percent of the lights are we talking about that back control would now exist? Is it all, I mean, I assume all of the classrooms turn off.
You probably want to up it over the days because as far as running low voltage and time and take existing occupancy sensors along with the VADs, I mean, that's really the scope.
Right, I don't know if I can really address the external versus internal driver aspect,
but yeah,
as far as the automation.
The automation is the important part because really at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's, the lights are going to turn on and off. But, you know, how are we going to be doing that is a question.
Yeah, so the big thing is we can tie in an occupancy sensor, you know, into our HVAC controls as an input. So based on if it's occupied, we can operate the VAV boxes or whatever controls are in each room to occupancy standards. And then once it's not occupied for a certain period, you can adjust that, and you can back it off to a non-occupied setting, a setback of whatever temperatures that you know, we agree on as far as the savings go. But then it's a room-by-room basis instead of a zone-by-zone basis, where right now you're switching on your areas of ability by zones, you know, and you can, you know, actually address each room based on usage.
Are you talking lighting now?
Lighting, correct,
okay.
yeah.
Lighting and HVAC. So that's a real big part of the scope when you're talking about that, because even if we, you know, put in this, you know, this great new Honeywell system, the EDI, and we bring everything to, you know, to one platform and do all the programming and commissioning, which is great, that you know what your schedules are. The best way to save energy is to turn things off when they're not being used. And instead of constantly, you know, adjusting your schedules, this level of control really delivers, you know, that much more in energy savings with a minimal investment, because we're reusing existing occupancy sensors and then tying them into not just one system but two systems. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that too, and then recommissioning those. And that's why you see, even when I talked to Lisa Boston at Barrett, she's done a lot of these projects. She was like, "Are you sure these savings numbers are accurate?" Because it's, you know, normally you're going to see a project that's in the $3.5 million range that has $100,000 in annual savings, which would be like Luxembourg schools. They were at about $120,000 in savings, and it was a much larger project. So all the due diligence we've done in the investment up front with this team really lends itself, and that's why you're seeing these kinds of numbers. And it's a complex scope of work, and that's why we have so many different people involved.
If I can build on that, some areas like gyms and auditoriums, it takes a lot of scheduling up front with your maintenance personnel, and then you alleviate all that as far as passing on when it's going to be occupied and when it's not. So you can use those sensors to kind of control it by itself as it's being used, rather than putting in schedules beforehand. So it makes it a little bit more foolproof and more energy efficient.
What is an occupancy sensor? Is it a motion sensor? Is it?
It's basically a motion sensor. Yeah.
So can't you still have an occupancy sensor? I mean, wouldn't that be the best way? Somebody's in the room, have the lights go on. Does that really need to be integrated into the larger system?
Yeah, well, tying it back into, again, we're turning things off, tying it back into the HVAC system just creates more efficiency for not a lot of spend. So, you know, to turn off, you know, everything in a room instead of just lighting. I mean, that's why you're seeing increased savings, because you're using the exact same sensor and the same low voltage on. So that's why we do it on, if there is a VAD system in a district, like Chuck's district, in 2009 when we did a project there, or 2010, I can't remember what the year was, we do it over and over again because it's cheap and easy. It's low-hanging fruit, and we're already implementing that for one technology. Why not implement it for two?
Why is there a loss in control or using that occupancy sensor if you have the driver built into the LED bulb?
There isn't.
Oh. Okay, so we don't lose an advantage by going with a bulb with a driver built in.
No, it's just what you're losing there is just from a design standpoint, because with an external driver, you can dial in basically ballast factor, meaning that how much current or power you're using and how efficient you can make the fixture. because we're dialing in light levels instead of a one-for-one replacement. So it's a completely different approach to lighting design. That's where the efficiency is gained, not necessarily in what you're controlling. While you are gaining efficiencies, but the design up front and lighting is just as important as opposed to, because not every space is the same. The fixture spacing isn't the same. The fixture efficacy in the existing isn't the same. So with the solution that we're providing, you're gaining more energy savings because of how we're lighting the space and then how we're controlling it. But they are two separate things. You can turn an LED system with an internal driver on and off just as much as you want it with an external. We're delivering a more efficient upfront system with the components and the design that we're implementing. That's the difference. Does that make sense?
How often do those sensors need to be replaced without additional maintenance on them?
That's a 20-year product is what it boils down to. Like when we did a relamp and reballast at University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. As part of our scope of work, we were using older existing occupancy sensors and then tying it back into the VAVs there. So recommissioning there is as simple as making sure that one, that it's functioning, two, that it's set up properly, so it's seeing the room the right way. So, and a lot of that stuff, that was probably old dual technology stuff. So it's not something that wears out with great frequency. So it's got a long life to it.
One other question that you said about turning everything off. I mean, obviously the lights go on and off, but what does that have to do with the HVAC? I mean, it just shuts off, and I mean, you got it at a certain temperature, or goes? I mean, what do you?
Yep. Let me explain this one thing, guys. So one of the great opportunities to save money is, I'm going to use your home as an example. So you have hopefully you have a programmable thermostat at home. You have a wake, leave, return, and sleep. So what we're doing is, it's the same thing your thermostat is. You have your thermostat at home programmed, so when you wake up and then when you leave, we're using an occupancy sensor to do that. So we'll have the time schedule in for the classroom. Say it's going to be from 8 to 3, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Well, what happens when the class isn't in the classroom? What happens if the class is in the gym? Or what happens if we have a snow day or some event, or everybody's in the gym? What we do is when the kids are in the classroom or when there's activity in the classroom, we maintain the temperature and we bring in the outside air. Outside air is very expensive to condition. I mean, whether it be in winter or be in summer, it's expensive to condition. So it has to be conditioned. And you have to bring in outside air. So what we do, how we capitalize on that, is if there's nobody in the room, one, why bring in the outside air and spend the money to condition it? And why do we need to maintain the classroom at 72 degrees or 70 degrees? Why can't we maintain it at 68 degrees? Just set it back at 2 degrees. It makes a huge difference. So if the kids are gone in gym or in music or in the auditorium or wherever they may be for an hour or two a day, it adds up. So that's how this project pays for itself. It's the pennies that equal dollars, that equals hundreds and thousands and so on and so forth. So just that little hour, them hours add up. And that's how, yes, we turn the lights off. That's just what you see. But there's still more money to be saved, and that's the stuff you don't see. And that's the HVAC. It's bringing in that outside air that we don't need anymore. It's shutting the air down. Because, I mean, why would we want to heat and cool a room and bring in outside air when nobody's there?
I just wondered about, like you mentioned, when they go to gym, and that 30 minutes, if it's going to cool down to 68, it isn't as efficient to bump it back up to 72 as soon as they walk in the door.
Yep, and the recovery time is relatively quick, and it's always something we can be field adjusted, if we do have a mechanical limitation. But if we leave for an hour, chances are the room may fall maybe 1 degree. But I'm not bringing in that outside air. That's where I really save the money. So the temperature is 1 degree or maybe 2 at the most. That's what we usually have a set at, so we don't have a big deviation because we're thinking kids could come in or staff could come in at any time. So we still want to have it be fairly comfortable. Within a few minutes, it'll be back up to where it needs to be.
Can you estimate what the lighting projects would be at the buildings if we went with the LED tubes with the built-in driver? As you know, we've already undertaken a project here, and it's half, less than half of the proposals at the other 3 buildings. And I don't think this building is appreciably smaller or anything that would necessarily make it cost less. Could you work on a price for us, and is it, or convince us? At our meeting, we discussed that safety was the biggest issue. And of course, it's not a safety issue for our staff or students. It would be a safety issue for the contractors doing this, or if one of our facilities employees made a mistake about putting, I guess, the wrong fluorescent bulb in a direct line fixture. Does the bulb blow up? Glass fly everywhere? Does it just burn out the bulb? And obviously, we'd eliminate that problem by just removing all fluorescent bulbs from this building. I did ask that because this project, other than testing areas, we haven't started putting the new bulbs in hallways or classrooms, that it be kind of, let's not, move into that just yet until we get some of this. But we did get my hands on a really nice article today that seems to summarize, the options between fluorescent and built-in driver, external driver, and the cost was a significant issue. You save a lot of money, and it seemed like a very small efficiency difference between this external driver option and the built-in driver. But again, it's a ping pong match depending on which article you read, maybe who wrote it.
I'd like to answer that one too, if I could. What I would, there's a couple things and a couple reasons why we view that. That's the very economical LED bulb with the internal driver versus our proposed way of doing it. One is the line voltage. So if any of you have ever tried to put a fluorescent light bulb in, it can be kind of cumbersome. You go and you put one in, and then you try to snap the other end in, and you need to do it without hitting any metal, because obviously you have line voltage there now. So you have the chance of getting zapped or shorting it out. It would be a direct short out. So you would short it out, and it would spark, and you would have all them kind of safety issues. The built-in, and it's not for, we have to look at the project for today and tomorrow. So when somebody retires, or when somebody new comes in and you put a light bulb in, if you did actually snap a regular light bulb in a line voltage socket, it would actually break. Push, it would literally break. So now you have glass that's going to be flying, you have some mercury vapor that's going to be disposed. There is a hazard, and that is, hopefully you didn't see that in your document, but it's very well documented that is a hazard. The other thing with the drivers that we put in, we will look at the space and say, okay, we need this many foot candles of light. That's a measurement of how bright a light we need in the classroom. And with the external driver, we can say there's basically 3 kinds of drivers. We have a low, medium, and high. And the driver is the gas pedal. I use a car and a gas pedal as an analogy. So the driver is the gas pedal. Some of the ballasts, some of the lights that have a lot of lights in the room, we'll use a low driver, meaning we're going to just push down the gas pedal a little bit on them light bulbs. And the light bulb, say it's a 17-watt light bulb, you can run that light bulb at different levels. It's a car, just like you can run your car. You can run it at 35, you can run it at 65, or if you're in other states, you can run it to the floor. And with the driver, we can run that light bulb at a different brightness. And how you drive a light bulb does affect the length of the light bulb's life. The harder you drive it, the time span, the lifespan is shorter. And this should be noted in your document, that the stuff that you found too. But it does. If you push a gas pedal at 35, you get better gas mileage on your car than you do at 65, and so on and so forth. And that's the same with the energy savings. If you want to compare apples to apples, we'd be very happy to do that, but I need the information then of what we're comparing it to. If the other proposal says, I'm going to put these kind of light bulbs in, you already know what we've already, I've already gave Josh information on the Philips light bulbs that I'm proposing to use. I would gladly go and line them up the best I can this is the light bulb, this is the energy usage, this is ours with a ballast, and so on and so forth. I'll do my very best to line them up so you can put the two side by side and see what you have. You already have the price, so you already know where you are in there, but let's get some more technical data and go there. So we'll be happy to provide some kind of information for you.
Is it that in certain rooms, based on the number of volts and lumens they're giving off, that you would then install a different driver to kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit? Or do you just use the same driver and they have some variable adjuster on it?
No, it's a completely different part number. It's the driver is a completely different piece of hardware.
And then a room-by-room mat, let's say, in 15 years or whatever, you go to, if you want to build or replace or there's warranty work in your as-built documents, that's noted what component went in there and why. So it's a lot more than just, you have a 3-line cable, we're going to put in three LED light bulbs, because there's a lot of thought and design that goes into it up front to maximize, again, energy savings and maximize fixture efficacy as well.
But if it's not variable and all that, and it's a one-time thing, can't you solve the same issue by just installing a slightly different tube LED bulb, one that's 11 watts instead of 13? In other words, if you know in this room, the goal is not to overlight, right?
Right.
That's the energy saving. It's not necessarily that it's more efficient. And can't you just use a bulb that, when the gas pedal's pressed all the way down, it's just more like a Chrysler instead of a Porsche? And doesn't that get you to this? Doesn't that? I own a Chrysler.
Well, for the drivers, there's one more equation that we look into it. How many lights, how many lights are in the room? What's the size of the room? What's the ceiling height? Obviously the higher the ceiling, we need to run that light down a little bit harder. We look at all them factors, and that's how we come up with what we need for a driver. So yeah, we pick the driver appropriate to the room to make the best match. Overlighting is, we actually will drop the foot candles down because we change the color of the light. So there's many different colors of light, and I'm sure people are seeing that nowadays. I mean, remember when the cars first came out, then it's some people that are coming at you with them really white lights, and that's what we're using now. It's white lights, but we need less light, and that's what we save our energy as well. So it's the light, the color of the light, the foot candles, the ceiling height.
I guess I at least would like to see, if we can give you at least and this is for the other buildings, obviously we're in a contract for this building, and whether we ask them to adjust it or not for more cost, we'll deal with that with them, but we can certainly let you know at least what we're doing.
Yep, or just for a room, or I don't need to know everything, but if you just would share something with me so I can work on give you some kind of comparison so I know what I'm comparing to, and then I can give you the pros and cons with both.
Because the difference, and I guess if you can speak now, what is the difference in the return on investment? But, it's $250,000 difference on those 3 remaining buildings to go your route, as opposed to just hiring the same company to do what they're doing here. And we want to know if we need to talk to them about adjustments. So I have the safety issue. We have the issue of are we over lighting, which can either be taken care of with drivers, or it sounds like you're in agreement. You could attach it from using a different bulb and still get the same result.
But does the Honeywell price for the lighting include the sensor?
Yeah, there's commissioning in there, there's low voltage runs, and there's also material for kits and reflectors as well. Again, it's not a one-for-one replacement. So, like if you go into your conference room next to Ed's office, the scope of work there, if I walked in and I was going to propose something, and I'd give him that, I would put a 2R T8 kit in there. So you would it would still give you dual switching, and it would replace the ballast and then 2 lamps instead of having 3. So we increase fixture efficacy. We would and lower the wattage as well, meaning we're using the light better and still lighting the room appropriately. and maximizing energy savings instead of just going in, taking line voltage right to wherever the power's coming into the fixture and put it in 3 LED bulbs. It's a much more complicated scope, and that's really, there's more labor, there's more material, more parts and pieces to his point, but you're saving a lot more energy. And I think getting a more aesthetically pleasing, usable sort of light, especially when you're going in a 3-lamp, like that's a parabolic fixture right there. In a 3-lamp parabolic fixture, it's going to be a lot more appeasing to the eye because of what we're doing in that room. It's going to look like a new fixture from the bottom instead of just replacing it with LED light bulbs. So that's really the difference. We can retrofit this any way you want. We just feel from our project experience that our approach is really the best bang for the buck because of what we're doing to the system. Again, going back to all the controls and everything else. Not even talking about Honeywell content, just talking about occupancy sensors and the design and the lighting system too. But Chris, like you said, would be more than happy to to slice it and dice it so you know exactly what you're getting and what the benefits are. It's not a problem.
Because we're under Evergreen right now, for the lighting system would just be the exterior lighting is listed here.
Yeah.
So was that based on the project that we have, but then the sensors are factored in someplace else here, or?
Yeah, they'd be commissioned, just like the rest of the schools, still turning things on and off. So we're going to be here, running low voltage, so there's no reason not to control them. So you're still going to get savings. But we didn't audit this building at all because it was already under contract. So we don't have a scope for Evergreen because you guys had already made the decision over winter break to go with it. I can't remember the name of the firm. The electrical was Tech and Weiss. Sorry. So yeah, we'll still be implementing controls here. Dave's gone through and looked at any of the DVs or anything else in here. Yeah, that'll be implemented. But we're just not touching any of the fixtures.
Right, so is that in a different section under Evergreen, or?
We put in Chris into that because remember.
Yeah, I think for Evergreen, I put that under E2.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So
The electrical system improvement? Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
I have the occupancy sensors under ventilation control. So and the other buildings, I put that under the lighting, but on this building, because I'm not doing the lighting, I believe that's where I put it. So our intent is to do ventilation control on all buildings.
So again, I know you can't compare apple to apple because yours has these hardware change-outs and stuff like that, but I think the biggest, maybe bare bones has been too, so bulbs with drivers in them as is, for as much as you can do that, then maybe kind of assuming whatever Peck and Weiss is going to do here, once you see theirs, it seems to be mainly just a change-out in the bulbs.
Yep.
And then, but most important of that is, what is the return on investment or calculated energy savings?
Yep, and that's the big thing, return on investment. That's our whole project. That's why we're here, and that's what we do, return on investment. So if you can definitely give me something, and then I can, compare it and say this is what we're going to have, or this is what you do have, or it's proposed, and this is what we're proposing. And I'll supply you with information, and that way I'll do my best to educate you on both scenarios, be comparable.
Is a licensed electrician required to change these out?
Yes.
In any manner, even if you're just taking out the ballast and putting in now the direct line? It all has to be done by a licensed electrician?
Yeah, for a couple of different reasons. One, Honeywell policy, they have to be a bonded, pre-approved subcontractor. Also to receive focus on that incentive.
They can't be lighting technicians that are highly trained and specialized?
No, and then also from a prevailing wage standpoint, there's no standards for public sector projects. That's what's in my impression.
With prevailing wage, that's going to be going away though.
It depends, well, yes, it will be going away, that is correct.
Go ahead with what you're going to say, though, because I think it's important.
Yeah, it depends on when it's implemented, because we all know that at the end of this calendar year, then it changes. So
When our project is implemented, or when the law is implemented?
well, the law is supposed to be
January 1.
January 1, right, when prevailing wage goes away. To the licensed electrician, yes, the only person who can change these and still be code is people within your organization right now. So your maintenance staff, they can change a ballast and light bulbs, it's fine. You can't, well, I guess you can hire an outside contractor to come in here and change ballasts and bulbs, but if you talk to your local electrical inspector, he'll have a very big problem with somebody unlicensed performing that kind of work outside your organization in your building.
Good to know. And regardless of individual opinions about prevailing wage and all that, unfortunately, the funding mechanisms for our public schools are such that it's made it very difficult, and I believe that was part of the reason that prevailing wage law was looked at. And so we're so close to that deadline, it would have been another nice thing to hear about in your proposal and what we need to look at. I know we have a healthy fund balance that's been the work of many years and many different boards, and if we spend that, some of that on students and staff, that's one thing. If you spend it on something that you won't even have a break even until 6 or 7 years, maybe longer depending on financing and stuff, that's a big issue. And then just to share with George and others, I did make some calls, and there are other companies that will come in, and again, I have no way to judge whether it's as comprehensive, whether it's apples to apples, but we do have, and I think within 2 or 3 weeks, we will have a proposal that does similar to on here, energy management system, controls, lighting. They expressed a lack of desire to bid on the things that we were already kind of suggested could be done in-house, plumbing and weather stripping. But at least before I would feel comfortable making a recommendation to the full board or voting as a board member on this, I would like to at least see another cost estimate. There's no cost to us. There's no liability, nothing that we have to sign or agree to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other thing I would like to see is what the financial impact would be if we do, these projects after prevailing wage is gone. Just because I think that will substantially lower the price. So I'm just curious, if it makes sense with some of the larger projects to push that off until after January 1st.
And you want to juxtapose that to maybe 6 months loss in, of course, energy savings by the lighting project being done 6 months. I've heard the pros and cons. Some people say it isn't going to change the rates at all.
It might not, but it's just I'm curious to see, what will happen.
Yeah, I think we have to do that.
When you're talking about building that, then are we talking typical wage for is delivered in the private sector versus prevailing wage? Because if you're talking about let's say a journeyman, like the average journeyman electrician in Milwaukee is earning within pennies of the prevailing wage already. It's very close if you look at house rates from Keeper or Faith or any of these companies. So it's really where the big dollar gap is on the lower end. The material handlers and things like that. Where it's that very entry prevailing wage versus let's say like a journeyman or whatnot. So when we're talking about building that scenario and the dollar savings, I would say how it's being staffed is just as important as the potential rate impact, because they are paid on a pretty big sliding scale. Even for whatever the prevailing wage would be for a building envelope person. There's going to be that that standard, and there aren't that many firms out there. So whether they're doing a federal job or a school or a hospital, they're going to be getting very close to the same wage. So if that's how we can build a difference, that's the question I'm asking the board. How do you want to set that just over the labor standard for the metro here versus prevailing wage, or where do you want the non-prevailing wage number to come from is my question. Because we have to have a threshold we agree on as to what the real savings are going to be. We know what the energy savings are going to be for 6 months or for a year, because that's what we do every day.
And basically, I guess what I'm looking for is if we did this project January 1st, 2017, the day after, when prevailing wage is gone, what is it going to cost? I mean, I have no idea of all of that stuff, where it's going to come from. I mean, because that's, what we are used to do. But what's the price difference?
And actually, I can do, that's very simple. It's a simple checkbox that I can check in my software program. It's either it's Davis-Bacon, prevailing, or not applicable. So it's a simple checkbox that I can check off. And my only question is, would you like to see it in like the same exact format? So one with prevailing wage and one without, or
if that's not hard to do,
okay,
that would be ideal, because we can basically look back and forth compare very easily.
Yep, and then we'll just have to have something on there. This is 6 months worth of energy. We can have a line on there or something like that, so that we can kind of compare, apple to apple.
That'd be perfect. Another question I had, with the building envelope, all of that stuff, and maybe this might be more towards Ken. What types of things are within that that maybe we can have like kind of his staff do? Like I know around the windows and everything, the weather stripping. I'm pretty sure that's something that he's able to do. What types of things within that make sense to do in house?
Well, that's actually it's a good question. Maybe I should ask. What would you like to do? I mean, is that something that you do want to do? And then the only thing that I would like to do is I'd like to, and I made a note of this too, is to send a sample of the material. The material is a very high grade. It's not something you can go to any place around here and purchase from Home Depot or your hardware store. It's a completely different type of material. So I made a list of that, and I'll get you a sample so that way you guys can see what I'm looking to put in. I know that I sent over the material list of all the material, but it's not the same as touching and feeling. So I'll do that. The building envelope, it is something that, if that's something that you do want to do, we can kind of make a list of, hey, this is, well, I already know, how many linear feet of this product I'm going to need. I already know all that. So I already have that data. That is something that if you guys want to do that, then we will make some kind of provisions to do that. The only thing that we have to kind of stand our ground in is we have to check it. And the reason being is because we're guaranteeing it. So we're putting our money where our mouth is. Yeah. So that's the big thing. Our installers, they're qualified in doing this. Not saying that you're not, but we have to ensure that it's done to our standard. Because we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Yes, that makes sense. I don't kind of not to throw you on the spot, but have you had a chance to look through what's all included in the building envelope? Is some of that stuff that you would A, have time for, and B, feel comfortable to do?
I haven't seen any of actually how many linear feet of this, how many linear feet of that. I guess my bigger concern would be how much time do you estimate for you to take to do that job, so I know how much time we have to expend for this. I have a crew of 3 taking care of 4 buildings. Feasibly, we could do it. Do we have the time? Possibly not. I guess that would be my best answer.
Jordan, if I can throw out one thing just to second that. Again, this is our experience at Broadhead. Yours may be totally different, but Ken's staff sounds like ours. Great staff, work hard, but are really hard pressed to get done the work. And when we had this issue in front of us at Broadhead, we made the decision that our staff was going to do it. We weren't going to spend the money to have qualified professionals. We could do it. It's not rocket science like some of the other stuff. 7 years later, they still haven't gotten some of them done. Simply because the day-to-day operations, it's not as big as priority as a boiler that needs repairs or whatever, all the things that come up. Looking back on it and talking with our building and grounds guy, I really think he wished we'd have spent the money and had somebody and just gotten it done all at one time and generated the savings instead of trying to parcel it out. And I can't tell you how much they've gotten done, but there's parts of it that aren't, and it's one of those decisions that maybe we should have done differently. And your situation may be totally different. Trust Ken, he knows what his staff can do, but sometimes it's just easier to get it done right up front and take the savings and run.
Is that something maybe we can then figure out, how much time you guys are estimating would go into that, and then maybe that's a conversation that, Matt, I can have with Ken and see what he thinks is feasible and kind of get a recommendation that way, figure it out.
I made a note of that and how many man hours that I have figured. And then I should be able to, I just have to break it down on how many man hours I have from roof wall to the door weather stripping. If the door weather stripping is something that, would interest the school district, I think that we could come up with some kind of solution. Be a part, we do one part and you guys do another part, something like that. But yep.
I guess Doug and Ken, did either of you guys have questions or comments?
It would have been nice to see the proposals like you have on Board Docs so we could download it and look at it. In the words of transparency, it's not very transparent when nobody else can see them except the board members, and it's not something that you go over in closed session.
Yeah, that is a good point. We should try to get this stuff up in Board Docs if possible. Any other board members have questions?
Just want to make sure I understand. So the 3 things I had down that we would be getting from Honeywell would be the lighting, when you get the light information, the building envelope list, and then the prevailing wage, and not prevailing wage information. Would be things we'll be getting.
As far as the deliverables after we adjourn?
Yeah.
A couple follow-ups. I would like the documentation on the wall roof junction and the leakage there. Hopefully have some photos or something we can see. And there is the solution for that to have, is that expanding foam to seal that, or what? How do you seal that?
It's 2-part foam, correct.
Okay, 2-part foam. How big a gap are we talking about?
I don't know what the size of the gap is. I need to look into it and see what the documentation is.
And issue for me is, I know this is supposed to seem like a really transparent process as far as bids, and you have referenced several times, and there's a sheet in the one packet,
Open book pricing.
And I know you said, look, if you have a contractor that can do X, Y, or Z, let us know and we'll have a bid on it. But I guess that's your job to find out who can do it. And you already have probably a preferred list of people you feel really confident in and that you go through time and time again and you have problems. And so if no adjustments are needed, no adjustments are needed. But is that where it gets into this? We talked about prevailing wage. I mean, if all of your preferred contractors are all, let's say, unionized employees and they have this guaranteed rate, and that may be what usually the prevailing wage is anyhow. I think this is where you were calling about journeyman electrician or whatever. In that sense, whether prevailing wage is in place or not, at least with the contractors you're probably having bid this, the price isn't going to change. Is that safe to say?
They're going to be very similar because they're going to be qualified, established firms that understand complex scope of work. So it's going to be close. But to say that that it's all union, the at-risk lighting contractor we used, for the audit here, Faith Technologies is an open shop. They're not a union shop. So union or non-union in Metro Milwaukee for electrical contractors really pay about the same. Okay. So it's I really wouldn't say it's a question of that. But yeah, there's just a certain cost that comes with that kind of talent. And it's difficult to find good contractors. Smaller. Well, we were up at Whitehall School District, and we were talking to their superintendent up there, and I can't remember the GC off the top of my head, but they used a construction project, not a Honeywell project. They used a local guy that was banging on their door for a long time, and the guy ended up not being bonded, not really qualified to do the project, got in over his head, and he went out of business. So selecting a strategic partner, for a large complex project like this or a design build project is important. And the union or non-union issue really in this day and age is pretty irrelevant.
Okay. And then $400,000 of this is the code E, energy management, C, energy management and electrical system improvements. Is the energy management system and controls, C, is that all done by Honeywell, or?
That is, yeah. I mean, that's Dave and Dave's installers, and then obviously you're buying it factory direct.
So is there any competition in that very large component? I don't know, it's 200,000 plus, is the variable speed drives ventilation control for Evergreen 107,000? Is that still?
Well, and actually, so I don't mean to talk a lot, but I'm being the project manager. I oversee everything. I mean, this data that Josh has been giving to you, it's all came through on my desk first. So for all of the schools, they already have existing Honeywell controls in there. So the only way that I can do that, if it's a Honeywell system or not a Honeywell system, the only way that I can do that is have the authorized control contractor work on that, on the existing buildings. And in here, it's Honeywell, except for this school right here.
So only Honeywell can put in a EMS?
No. In the existing schools, besides this one, it is currently a Honeywell system. So on those systems, yes, Honeywell would be the authorized contractor to do the programming modifications that I need on that system in the buildings.
So where does the competition come in for? So the controls and all that, that's still Honeywell though, right?
It's existing product. I'm not looking to replace any product. It's only going to be labor to do the programming. The product is going to still stay, it's existing, and they're just modifying software. So the technician will come here, plug his computer on, go like this a couple times, and then hit download. So it's an existing system. I'm not replacing the product.
Except for this building.
Except for this building would be the only building that the product would actually be replaced. But the other schools, the other buildings, it's existing product.
So if we're looking at Woodfield Energy Management and DDC-based project, 14,000, is that just the guy coming and doing the software thing that you just gestured, or is there more to it?
There's more to it, but I'm trying to keep it simple.
What is more to it? I mean, we're talking hardware and controls?
There will be some hardware, yes. And there will be some wiring, there will be an electrician involved. Yep.
Okay.
So it says on there, I'll be putting in some VFDs, or I hope to put some VFDs in. I need a programmer to write some software. I need an electrician to run some conduit, with some cabling to go back to the controller.
So where does then I'm doing the quick math in my head, so it's about $350,000. Where does the competition come in that piece? I mean, where do we know? I mean, it's kind of like we just accept Honeywell's price. They're doing that. You guys are Honeywell's services group. I don't know, again, how exactly the Honeywell umbrella works and who's doing what, but where is the competition in that big piece of this pie?
The competitive, well, we have a couple different areas. I mean, we have some contractor, that's our electrician who's going to run the wire. We have that, but as far as the Honeywell makes the Honeywell make, well, I guess maybe I better let Dave and for this building or for the other buildings?
Well,
maybe
the four buildings, but obviously a big chunk of it looks like 295,000 C1A and E2 is just this building alone.
Yeah.
Where does the competition come in there?
The competition would come more in the electrical subcontractor that runs the wire, installs, changes out the device. Honeywell is predominantly all the hardware, controls, programming, setup, checkout, all that type of stuff. As far as running, one of the problems with this school in Evergreen was that when it was installed, the bus was kind of questionably installed. It's been a problem and it's caused a lot of problems over the years. Our intent is to rerun that bus fresh, new, don't use existing, so I don't have to worry about shorts or any potential problems with the existing wiring. So I got an electrical subcontractor running the bus. He's going to change out the devices, the style stat on the wall, I'm going to put a new one on, that type of stuff. Some controls are being reutilized, but all of that type of electrical work is competitively bid with other electricians. We collect bids to determine who's the best contractor to utilize. Obviously, we want our price to be competitive, so we're not, as low as possible. So we do that part. So the electrical install is a competitive piece. The device is the device. It's what works with the overall system. The front end that we utilize, kind of reiterate the reason we use the EBI front end is that it talks with all of the existing controls in the other 3 schools, so it doesn't drive us to rip everything out and put in all new. We can utilize what's there. It makes it easier, less disruptive, what have you, in various schools. Then here, at this particular school, we're putting in a newer style control, but the EBI talks to both. And from Ken's point of view, when he calls it up on the computer, it all looks the same, it all plays the same, programming's the same, everything's identical. He gets away from having currently the 2 separate systems to bring into a single system. So that's really what drove us in that particular choice of devices. But to answer your question, the competitive aspect is in the electrical install.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I guess we'll wait then to get back the lighting, the prevailing wage, and the building envelope stuff. That's what it was. We'll wait to get all that stuff back, and then kind of take it from there. And
that's something we should just send directly to Ed and let him distribute it to the other board, then I assume?
Yeah, please. Okay. Yeah, if you could email it, that'd be awesome.
All right. Good enough.
Other than that, then I would make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, move to adjourn.
Second that.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all. Personnel and finance. The only item on our agenda tonight is monthly budget check ledger review, and you have the documents posted there as public content. And there were some additional checks, by the way, that when I got there today and reviewed were added, and that's why there's 1 extra document on board docs for that. Anybody have any questions on those? I just had one. There was a large, I think it was 145 for Skyward and 145,000. And is that part of our technology? I mean, what is that? I couldn't find details on that.
The Skyward, that's probably the yearly
I
subscription.
say there were a lot of details, I just didn't understand.
That's not the yearly.
That's not?
No, I think that's Cannon's project.
Yes.
Doing all those internal upgrades.
Yes.
That was all part of that whole project. The phone system and everything.
Okay. That's
So
what
it
I
wasn't
thought.
Skyward, it wasn't.
Through yearly fees, no.
That wasn't it. A lot of
We
it.
don't pay such a lot.
So. I'm looking up to it, have that.
The yearly ones?
No,
I think
it's the one.
I think we're okay. I think I just was looking, that's what I assumed it was, Cannon's project, and it just
Yeah.
goes through that vendor or whatever, I don't know.
And some of it was, new switches and some of the wiring has been done. So, and some of that was the underground cable. So there's been a lot of cable going on.
Can you talk about the 50 rate not running?
And some of it was, a lot of it was in this building. So too, they have, the sub closets are set up as well. So there's now, so a lot of wiring was done in the, you have, if you look in, next time you're in district office, you look in that back room, we now have they ran fiber to that office and then, or to that room, and then there's a switch back there. So, that's all waiting till July 1 before it all goes live.
It's the switches.
And those are all powered switches. So
Looking out all the line items, it's a lot of switches.
that would probably do it right
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Switches.
Yeah, I saw it was approved by school board, and I just figured it was part of that project, but it's such a big check, I thought it was worth it.
Yeah.
It's that whole project.
Yeah. So So the distinction would be this company happens to be called Skyward.
That's what threw me, yeah.
Skyward
Technologies
Right.
versus Skyward Information Services.
Yeah.
I wish they would just name themselves something else. It'd be much easier.
Okay. Anybody have an additional question or? Okay, then, motion to adjourn. Second, we're adjourned at 7:05.
Okay, then I'll call the